Hey, what's up there YouTubers, Edgemans in the job community guys, today with another deck tech. So today we are taking a look at a standard deck, and it is Rug Delver, so red, blue, and just a little splash of green. So with Avacyn Restored out now, everybody kind of flocked to different decks that they want to run. The two decks that I mainly chose to run for standard now are Rug Delver and also Esper Control, and Esper Control is going to be coming up in a future deck tech, but for the purpose of today's video, we're going to be breaking down Rug Delver. Now, it's a fun deck that you can take to FNM. It's going to be something that's going to be different. It's not going to be the typical standard format decks that you see running around now. It's going to be fun. It's highly competitive, so it can top out the rest of the competition easily. And it does require a little bit of thinking, so if you guys play test around with this deck and once you get accustomed to it and are comfortable with running it, then I would suggest actually taking it to a competition, but it does require some thinking, like I said, and knowing what to do in a certain scenario, especially when it comes to sideboarding stuff. But we're going to break this down into a couple of different sections here, but before we do that, if you guys have any suggestions for decks that you would like to see, please leave that in the comments below, and I'll take it into consideration with future deck tech making. So the first thing that we are taking a look at here is the land base. So first off, we have Cavern of Souls. So this is going to let our creatures in the deck be uncounterable. So all of the creatures that we're using in this deck are humans, which is pretty awesome and convenient. So you don't have to have multiple caverns for different types of creatures in here. Mainly the Cavern of Souls is going to be an island with benefits, so to say. Other than that, if you're needing to cast instants or sorceries, the Cavern isn't going to be relevant at all because it's just going to give you generic mana. But having your creatures be uncounterable is very, very good, especially with the way the format is now, because people are still going to be running counter spells regardless of Cavern of Souls, because there's always the off chance that you don't get one early in the game. Next we have Sulfur Falls, so this is going to be a playset giving us blue and green. Or blue and red, should I say. What am I talking about? Blue and red. Can't talk today. Next we have Rootbound Crag. So this is what's giving us green. So red and green here. This is going to be splashing for Noxious Revival. Now it has a Phyrexian mana cost, but still if we have a little bit of green in here that we can utilize, it's always good so we're not always paying with our life. But there's not too many to pollute the mana base, but at the same time, there's just enough so that you see it here and there whenever you need it. So 2 was the proper choice in this situation. Next we have the basic land, so we have 5 islands, so 3, and another 2. And we have 6 mountains, so 3 and 3. Pretty straightforward land base, not too much to think about or speculate about. Now we're going to take a look at the creatures here, and there aren't very many of them. But the first one is Delver of Secrets, and a very amazing creature at that, because we're running a lot of instants and sorceries in here, so it's pretty easy to have him flip into his 3/2 Insectile Aberration form. So, as you could imagine, a playset of Delver. So we'll get him out of the way here. Next we have Snapcaster Mage, so a playset of him as well. This is going to be to reoccur certain spells that we have here. Also, he flashes in, and he is a 2-power swinger at best, so he's pretty good. Being able to reoccur stuff like Vapor Snag is always very efficient for the deck. Next we have Invisible Stalker, and this is the last creature of the deck, so this is going to be a playset. He's a human rogue, hexproof, unblockable. The unblockable becomes really relevant whenever we have a Runechanter's Pike out there, being able to swing in for cheap damage. Also, he can shave off some damage early game as well, even if you don't have the Runechanter's Pike. Just a great card, again, keeping straight with the human type here. But definitely really efficient for the deck. I playtested with different stuff before, and I had stuff like Stormblood Berserker, but for this deck, because we're running stuff like Runechanter's Pike, having Hexproof is always really nice, especially with Tragic Slip being in the format. But with the way it is, 12 creatures is really nice for the deck. Alright, next we have all of the rest of the spells of the deck, so instant sorceries and artifacts, stuff like that. First off, we have Thunderous Wrath, so this is going to be a play set. So, really awesome card, has a miracle cost for 1 red. Like I talked about before with Noxious Revival, you can set it up to get multiple Thunderous Wraths off and just keep on dealing 5 damage. Really awesome, just absolutely amazing card. It can get rid of most Planeswalkers except stuff like Karn. But whatever situation presents itself, if it's a really annoying creature or if it is just dealing direct damage, Thunderous Wrath becomes very, very useful. So we have a playset. Put that up here. Next we have Incinerate, so 3 Incinerates here. I decided to have 3 and not have a playset here, just because of the way the deck operated and how often I actually wanted to see this card. Now it deals 3 damage, and mainly that's going to be for getting rid of creatures or in the off chance that you're just going for direct burn. But the thing that I thought about with running Incinerate over Pillar of Flame was playing against humans, and in the case that they're running a Honor of the Pure and already hits the board, you're not going to be able to get rid of as many creatures as you would with the Pillar of Flame, and Incinerate is just going to be able to take care of more stuff like Mirran Crusader once the Honor of the Pure hits and stuff like that. So Incinerate, it was just the better choice over Pillar of Flame. But depending on how people's metas operate, you could also substitute it for Pillar of Flame. Next we have the draw suite of the deck. So we have Ponder. So this is going to be a playset, and I have my 1 altered one here. So it lets you rearrange the top 3 and draw a card. Also, shuffling is possible if you don't like the top 3 that you see. This is going to be good for setting up miracle cards and also Delver to flip. So that is the main thing about this deck. Also lets you shuffle if you don't like what you see. So playset of these. Put that up here. Next we have Faithless Looting. So this is also going to be a playset. Lets you draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. So the one thing that I liked about this card is if you're stuck with a opening hand of a Temporal Mastery, Faithless Looting becomes pretty good because you can discard that Temporal Mastery, because oftentimes you won't really, well, in most cases you won't get the mana to actually hard cast it. But with Faithless Looting, you can get rid of it out of your hand. You can go Noxious Revival, put it back on top of your deck, and then cast it. Unfortunately, stuff like Temporal Mastery, whenever you cast it, it exiles, so you won't be able to abuse it as much. But Faithless Looting lets you draw and kind of abuse certain elements of the deck. So playset was really good, and it lets you get cards that you need really quick. Being able to draw 2 at a time is really nice, and it has a flashback cost of 3. So speaking of the Devil, Temporal Mastery here, lets you take an extra turn, just really awesome for 1 generic and 1 blue mana. So for 2 mana, taking an extra turn is always really sick. Like I talked about before, it exiles after after it resolves, so it's going to be unfortunate for being able to Noxious Revival after it resolves and keep on putting it back on top, but I guess that was something that Wizards saw ahead of time, and they were like, oh no, this isn't going to happen, so let's add in Exile Temporal Mastery. But it's definitely really relevant, like I talked about before, with Faithless Looting in your opening hand. If you have one of these and you don't want to mulligan it away, it becomes relevant with the looting. But being able to take extra turns with swinging in with Invisible Stalker or Delver or anything like that is always awesome. So, very, very cool card to have in the deck. Next we have Vapor Snag, so this is going to be a playset as well. Lets you return a target creature to your opponent's hand. Also, it's going to help with stuff like Mirran Crusader, and if they still decide to use the Angelic Destiny trick on him, whenever they swing in, you can just be like, oh, Vapor Snag, return your creature, and you take one life loss. So it's not a bad card. It lets you get rid of stuff on the board, stuff that could be a blocker or a really bulky swinger on a given turn. Very useful card for 1 blue mana, can be flashed back very easily, and it can be cast very easily if your opponent has something like a Thalia out on the battlefield. Next we have Noxious Revival that we talked about a lot. So put target card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. So it's going to be really awesome with cards that have a miracle, like the Thunderous Wrath, also the Temporal Mastery that we talked about before if it's in your grave. Also, it's really awesome for getting back Vapor Snag, Ponder. If your opponent gets rid of your creatures with a Day of Judgment or something, you can get back your Delver and hopefully flip it the next turn, something like that. So it also does more than just being a miracle cost setup. It also helps out with some other stuff in the deck. And the last card that we have in here is Runechanter Spike. So we have 2 of these. So it is a 2-cost artifact, 2 to equip, gives your creature first strike and +X/+0. X is equal to the amount of instants and sorceries in your grave. So it shouldn't be hard to fill it up with instants and sorceries with cards like Faithless Looting. Also using cards like Thunderous Wrath, Incinerate. All cards are pretty easy to use and get into your grave. So Runechanter Spike is going to build up pretty quick, and equips to Invisible Stalker. You can get in some unblockable damage. Also with Delver you can get in some flying evasion damage as well. So that about does it for this deck, and that is everything that I'm running in this deck. If you guys missed any certain part of the deck and the quantities or anything like that, the entire deck list is going to be down below. Now, while I don't provide a sideboard for you guys with reason, because everybody's meta is going to be different, you don't want to run anybody's sideboard thinking that it will be good in your given competition. But some things to consider would be Negate in the sideboard for the control matchup. Also, stuff like Manabarbs. Manabarbs is really good against control decks, and also stuff like Wolfrun, because you're going to be using a lot of mana to cast their stuff. But generally, whatever you feel like is the best deck, try to pick cards that are going to be good against those decks that you can side in Game 2, and if it actually comes down to Game 3, use in Game 3. But that about does it for this deck. If you guys enjoy this deck, please be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe for more daily Magic the Gathering content. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and have a wonderful, fun-filled Magic the Gathering day.